All right, everyone. Welcome, Lisa Elizabeth, to the podcast. We have plenty to talk about insanity going on social media today. So, Lisa, thanks for coming.
No, thanks for having me.
Well, let's blast right into this clip, and then I really want to hear what you think about it. Do it, Sean.
I gotta watch my accounts because they've been frozen by the Jewish banks. So I need to watch my meals.
Well, CNN says white people are evil Nazis. So, I mean, I disagree with both statements, but I get the frozen.
I don't like the word evil next to Nazis. I think we need to look at.
Oh my goodness!
All right, that's good.
You don't like
That's
one
fine.
group doesn't mean the other. Look,
I love Jewish people, but I also love Nazis.
Oh man! Well, I have to disagree with that. But listen, we're gonna go.
All right, you can pause it. You can pause it.
Yeah, that was
You know
it.
who
Yeah.
that reminds me of? God, Alex reminds me of, Philip Seymour Hoffman in The Big Lebowski when he gets like all nervous.
Yeah.
Like that character that he made Alex nervous.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard to do.
He definitely made him visibly nervous. The whole thing is just wild, like his mask, and I don't even know what that was about. I mean, he made some interesting points that clarified the "I love Nazis" and "I love Hitler" comments way later, like all the way at the end, because I did watch it. But that's going to be taken out of context and thrown around everywhere, and Twitter and the internet is going to go insane right now.
Well, I will say in terms of the mask, he has done live shows, like, musical performances with his face completely covered like that. So that's not, yeah, I know it's super dark, weird style, but
and he wouldn't say that he was running for president. Like he wouldn't, he was like his walk to the house is what he was saying.
Yeah.
But like, if you are running for office or that is your plan and you ask somebody to be your running mate, like, what people are going to think you're absolutely insane. What are you doing wearing a mask over your face like that? I don't, and I really am surprised that Nick Fuentes is entertaining it as much as he is, at least those portions of it, because you can tell that Kanye is relying on Fuentes for a lot of the content that, like, when things get technical or, out of Kanye's or Ye's wheelhouse, he defers to Nick. And so I can't believe that, like, Nick or Milo or anybody was like, you're really going to wear that? It almost feels like they're following him blindly. And I honestly can't understand why, because maybe Milo, but not so much Nick. I thought he was like his more strong, independent person than that too. So.
Alex did push back on the mask. He did try to get him to take the mask off, but kind of to Bill's point, that is kind of what Kanye does. It's very Balenciaga-esque. Like when I saw it, I was like, this is kind of very Balenciaga, So yeah, it just one of the things that he said in the interview is that Balenciaga was a hit job and it was a setup. So he was defending it, which was kind of interesting. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yeah, I did. I guess he meant a setup because he was so, intertwined with them and, represented Balenciaga for the most part. I think he was kind of taking it like, oh, they're attacking me because they know I'm doing this now. But that's ridiculous too. They're not going to self-sabotage themselves that much just to take down Kanye West. I mean, that's a little narcissistic of him, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. I had some other notes out of it too. Like he also said Instagram is a prostitution ring, and that his 30 days off of Instagram has been the best thing that's happened to him because it's such a infested prostitution ring. He also said he's pro-Putin, pro-Russia. And they tweeted on Ye's
that was Fuentes, and he said that for a long time. Like he's pro-Putin, pro-Russia.
No, Ye said that too.
He said it too? Because I know Nick did, and then I guess maybe he agreed, I thought.
Yeah.
But
he said, yeah. So I just thought those notes were interesting.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think that there's like a lot of nuance though to what they said. Like overall, if you clip things out here and there out of context, it looks really bad and wild. But if you kind of like digest it and break it apart a little bit, it kind of makes a little more sense.
I mean, this is performance art, 100%. But I think that the point was saying, something like "I love Hitler." I don't know if you've heard that Alexander Solzhenitsyn quote, the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being, and who is willing to destroy a piece of his own heart. So like, he's obviously, Hitler is the extreme form of that, with probably like the, most of his heart is evil. And then there's this like other part of him, which, was responsible for a ton of innovation. And, people historically have always given Hitler credit for, being like a great figure throughout history, not necessarily a good or bad, but great just because of his influence, because of his charisma. And so I think that's what they're getting at, is just this nuance of like, every human is a human, and you can't just like take that away from him and say that there's nothing of value.
Well, he was saying like his overall theme has been, and was especially today, was like, I'm here to love. I'm tired of the hate. I'm here to love. I'm here to love. And he said, I love the Jews. I love Hitler. I love the Nazis. And then he tried to even further extrapolate, like all the way at the end, by saying like, they called us the N-word and we took it back, right? We started calling ourselves that, and they called me a Nazi. So I'm going to love Nazis, and I'm going to use the word, and I'm going to love it. And they called women bitches, and Beyonce took it and tried to own that word back too. So I think that it's like a multi-pronged kind of approach that he's doing there, trying to spread love, trying to be the, God-like. I mean, there was a lot of God testimony in there. I mean, he was reciting full-on prayers, and honestly, he didn't seem very lucid, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't like
it's spreading love, and it's like I feel like he's trying to cling to a love justification for what he's saying, but also is making these blanket generalizations and trying to attack like Jewish bankers or Jewish media. And so he seems to like want the best of both worlds, and to be able to kind of make ridiculous statements, but then also like attempt to try to counterbalance it.
It's funny. He brought on Laura Loomer. Like, he called Laura Loomer on her cell phone and brought her in, and she was like, well, I'm here. I love everybody. I don't think anybody should be deplatformed. Me as a Jewish woman, I'm the most deplatformed woman. And, even Jewish women, Jewish people, can be deplatformed. And he happened to agree with that. And he's like, I love Laura. She's Jewish. I love this one. Milo's Jewish, So he was definitely trying to have the best of both worlds. And I think Laura and somebody else came on for him and kind of like softened the blow a little bit.
Well, I'm going to play counterpoint to you guys a little bit. So Alex tried multiple times to rein him back, to clarify, to say, maybe there were some good things, but hey, like, you have to understand, like, in Kanye every single time said, no, I love, I was just live before we went. It was, the interview still going on, but where I was, he was like, Germany had a great leader. They had a great leader. And like, he was being as sincere as he can be, even though Alex is pushing back, people are pushing back. They're saying, maybe you don't agree, but he just kept going. So
you're not playing counterpoint to me. I think it's completely insane, but
I just don't know if it's about love.
I think Lisa would probably say the same thing, but
but here's a different thing though. You can still be you can be a horrible human being, and you can still be a leader that has your country somewhat together, under control. Maybe that's where he's trying to find the good in it, But I mean, he did also say though that Hitler didn't kill 6 million Jews.
Okay.
Right.
He definitely said that.
But and that's what I'm saying. So like, I don't necessarily know if this is if he, like, I'm thinking it might be more of a PR stunt. Like, I understand the love angle, and he's saying, I love this, love that. But I'm kind of, this is just my wild hunch. A couple weeks from now, he comes around and does a complete 180 on this.
But I think that's because of his mental illness state, not from a PR stunt. I mean, he gets PR just by virtue of being, Kanye West, whatever you want to call him. He gets plenty of PR by that. He doesn't need to do all the stunts. This is like, and he will go through, this is like a manic cycle that he's in, where everybody's kind of like pushing and feeding his ego. And I can understand why people like Fuentes or Milo is doing it. Like Fuentes wants a bigger, more national audience to explain his positions. And he did so rationally. He said, I'm not, a white nationalist. He said, I think that he was like, we're all God's children, and tried to, mainstream his ideas a little more. And so I can see why he's, clinging on to Kanye to jump on that, jump on a bigger platform. But I don't think it's healthy for Kanye. Like, I don't think that the man is stable at all.
Who around him do you think is influencing him with the kind of revisionism and the Holocaust denial?
I think that's him. I honestly think that that's him and him alone. He is on this like Christianity kick, this Jesus kick. He's a vessel for the Lord.
He started his own religion, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like I think it's definitely him. And I think that parts of what Fuentes says, backs him up, and parts of what Milo says backs him up. And so now he feels like he's being, supported, I guess.
And so what do you make of Nick's kind of attacks of Jewish people?
I mean, Nick wasn't really, I haven't seen a lot of Fuentes over the years. I basically saw him on like You Are Here once, and then just like a highlight reel that Sid did. And so I wasn't seeing him do that today. So I don't want to say like how I feel.
I've just seen this one. I've seen very little of him overall, but there's just this one clip where he's kind of like ranting about how America needs to be Catholic and not Jewish, and like.
Christian, I think. I mean, he's Catholic. I'm Catholic. I get that. But he definitely usually says Christian, Jesus loving.
He was saying Catholic in this one clip. And look, again, I actually agree with the sentiment that, and this is like all the work that we've done with Daryl Davis and, with de-radicalization. Are you familiar with Daryl, Lisa?
No, actually.
So he is a Black musician who has befriended KKK members. And
I do know him. I do. I just wasn't remembering the name. Yes.
So, that type of philosophy, essentially aligns with this, it's very anti-cancel culture. It's like, even the worst people, I'm going to see the good in them because they can change. And Daryl proved that. That's why we work with Daryl. We wrote a huge paper about, how censorship is bad for radicalization. And, I think that that's the angle that Kanye should be using, but instead he's kind of just like, it's stumbling around between, different ideas. And I don't know. It's,
So there is no linear train of thought there. I mean, he can't stay on track at all. And he jumps around from topic to topic and subject to subject. And, anybody entertaining it, honestly, is like a legit run for president or a legit campaign is out of their mind. So like, I guess maybe his plan is to move the Overton window. He said that, talk about things that normally wouldn't be able to be spoken about, like Nazis and whatever. They do make some decent points. Like, you can criticize this whole group of people, but you can't criticize that whole group of people. You can't label the Jews as like one group of people, but you can say, oh, the Black voting bloc, right? Or, I do think that there's some merit to that. Like, either we all are okay with having separate groups and separate identities, or apparently we're not. So which one is it? Like, you can't just you pick and choose.
It's almost a good point, but it's not a good point, because it's like, yes, that's true that there's certain groups that kind of can be like, oh, it's okay to criticize white people, but not X other group. But the answer to that isn't to go criticize groups. And that's, they're kind of saying, oh, well,
I get that, but there is something where they're like, I feel like everybody's trying to get rid of individual, like certain group cultures altogether, so that like we can just be one world culture. And I don't think that that is sustainable or healthy or good for society at all either. So you have to be able to say, yes, this is a culture. They have good people, they have bad people, and they have these specific identity markers. And because that is true. Like, it just is true. Like, I don't know how to explain it.
Well, no. And I think the key word that you just said is specific. And I think that if we're going to criticize, like, okay, yeah, I can agree. Like, there certain specific group, but it needs to be more specific than, just white or just Jewish or just whatever.
Well, he was being
like hone in deeper, like use more qualifiers on it. Like, you don't have to go all the way down to the individual level, but let's like talk about much more granular categories than just the higher level, race or ethnicity or whatever. You can still use that group, but I don't think that it's at all productive, and it seems a little bit lazy. Because like, if you apparently know some corrupt X group, then say who you're talking about specifically. It doesn't have to be an individual. It can.
No,
you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's my take on it. So the only thing I really agree with them on is the anti-censorship thing. Like, I'm totally, I disagree with everything they're saying in this interview, but I do agree that they should have the right to say it, but we should also have the right to challenge it and mock it. So I do agree with them on that. But like, when it comes to Fuentes, like, I know very little of him as well, but I know one of his major talking points is that women shouldn't have rights. Women should not be able to drive. Women shouldn't be able to vote.
I would gladly give up my right to vote if all those liberal women didn't vote and ruin our country. Honestly, like, I know.
But that's such
a like. That's how I feel. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, but I do think that there's something. I do think that there's something necessary about returning to traditional gender roles and women, it being, lifted up, that women stay home and not be in the office and prioritize their family and being good wives. I think that that's true. I think that a lot of the sexual revolution and things like that, and the movement for women to have rights to vote and things like that, put women back in if you look right now, happiness scale wise, women are way less happy than they said that they were back when they so-called didn't have rights. And if you really look at the happiness models and studies, it says that women, unmarried single women, are the most unhappy. And that is what we're going around like praising, that we should be, instead of being servants to our husbands and our kids, we should go be servants to corporate America and work in an office from 9 to 5. And I don't think that's helpful for society or for women. I think that women are happiest when they're home with their children.
So let me just counter. I love that you said that, because I don't agree with anything that you said, but that's why I mean,
that's my whole thing.
With it. So this is why I wanted to ask Fuentes when he was on with Sydney on You Are Here, if I had the chance to ask him. So I get that, he may feel, okay, women may be happier at home or whatever, but should we actively take the rights away from people that don't want that lifestyle, that do want to be a career person?
No. I'm not saying that either. I'm not necessarily. I'm not saying like, okay, women aren't allowed to work. That's not what I'm saying. If you want to work, go work. But we should, as a society, start having values and encouraging people to do what's in their biological nature. Right? It is, and women, they can deny it. They can say it's a social construct all they want, and that it's the patriarchy. But that's not true. And if you look at civilizations all throughout society, the women are the nurturing, stay-home caretakers for the most part. Of course, there's outliers, but for the most part, that's true. And so all of this that we're doing in our culture right now, whether it be the trans stuff or women going out and working or whatever, is denying our biological nature, and that's only going to put us back. Like, it's only
Wasn't there a documentary in like Sweden about this that was kind of polling? Never mind. If you don't know about it,
I do. There was one, it was like polling their happiness, and because they are like the most egalitarian as far as the sex.
Right. Yeah.
But if you look at the jobs that they picked, the women would do more nurturing jobs like teachers and nurses and those things. They gravitated towards them anyway. And so, there is truth to your biology having something to do with there was another study, I think it was Doyle talking about somebody, but, where they went and they listed like a bunch of terms like masculine, masculine or tough or meek, mild, kind, sweet, those type of words. And the typical words that you would identify with male and female, they like met all like, I can't talk today. They, like your gender matched up with those no matter who you asked all throughout like different cultures and different whatever. I mean, and that is because that's how women and men are. I mean, women are traditionally more meek and mild and nurturing and loving and emotional and all those things that we're told not to be. Like women are told constantly, like, don't be emotional. Okay. Well, women are emotional. We have hormones that regulate us to be emotional and not emotional. Like how often? And so now we have to be the non-emotional, non-weepy, extra no, you're asking us to be like men. We are not men. We are not biologically formed that way. And so the more that we deny that as women and the more that society denies that, then the worse off we're going to be. We have a cultural problem more than we have a legislative problem.
Have you had any sort of transformation? Did you ever think differently from this, or have you always kind of been on this wavelength?
So I've always been like rebellious in nature. And as a woman who, like I'm a VP of a company and I do a lot in the political space, and people would say that like I'm bossy or whatever. Yeah, like I guess that when I did have that drive to get married and have kids, and I did, but we do live in a 2-income household. And that is because, you know, when women started entering the workforce, not only did it, you know, flood the workforce with more employees and drive wages down, but it also said to the employers, we don't have to pay men as much because they don't have not that they don't have a family to feed or at home like they used to. Salaries for men used to be higher. They said, oh, we can drop part of the salary because the woman's bringing money into the home too. So now we're forced to be in this 2-income society. And if I'm going to be in it, then I'll be good at what I do, but I'd prefer not to be. And I've always felt like I should be home. But if I'm, like I said, but if I'm going to have to be forced to live the way society has us live now and eat and survive and get my kids not in public schools, but in a private school, then I'm going to have to be good at what I do. But
yeah, I mean, we forced you to come on. You really did.
Yeah. No, listen, I mean, I know that like an anomaly in that right, but I would give it up all tomorrow if I could go and have a farm and chickens and horses and whatever.
But wouldn't you want to live stream from there? Isn't that fun? Isn't that just like a cool thing to do that doesn't necessarily mean that you're like,
yeah, but what would I have to talk about? Because at that point, right, and I would hope that like I would be fulfilled and hopefully the world would be more fulfilled. Like if women stayed home, I wouldn't need to talk. Right. And if men were real men, I wouldn't feel the need to talk. Like,
yeah, but you still have the issue too. And like, I understand like in just the theory, but you still have a ton, like I come from the generation of the single mother, you know, like a ton of me and a ton of my friends, single mothers, you know.
Right, but wouldn't your mother, here's the thing, your single mother, wouldn't she have loved to have had a man that was home, that loved her, that was providing for her, and that she could just be home with her children? Do you think that she wanted to be a single mother or that she wanted to work the way she did? Wouldn't she rather be home with you every day?
No, no, she did. To be fair, yeah, she would obviously want to be home, but like when you're a single mother, you have to work. But she also strives to go to college. So she went to college. She was doing that.
And I'm not saying women shouldn't be educated. Like, absolutely, women should be educated. And by the way, it takes a lot. Like, it takes a lot of intelligence and you know, hard work to keep a household going. Like, it does take a lot of that. And so I think that we demean like, oh, you just want to stay home. Like there's a lot of work and you basically run your whole family when you stay home. So it's not like you're losing any power. We just reprioritized what the basic, you know, importance of society was, and it should be the family, and it's not.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like some people's passion is their family and having kids, but I've known a lot of women, my wife included, that their passions lie elsewhere, where they want to make the world a better place. They want to really work hard toward whatever their goal is, you know? And so that's why I'm against, like,
you can do charity and you can do all kinds of other things to make the world a better place and still pursue your passions while not being an actual, like, the breadwinner or the full-time employee there.
It's tough though, because like you said, like when you have kids, it's tough to like really go hardcore, 16-hour days when
You
you have
shouldn't. You
kids.
shouldn't have to, because the kids deserve better than that. And that's the thing that we all forget. Like, those kids didn't ask to be born, and they are owed a mother and a father with somebody home with them,
Right.
somebody to, teach them and to love them and to hold them and to be there for them, to cook with them. They just want you to be there.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. I support those women that choose not to have kids because they know that. They know, like, hey,
Yeah, that's fine.
you know what I mean? Like, and I think, if you look at the really extremist religious societies that exist where women are viewed as property and they don't have rights and they can't drive, they are worse off because half of their population is not productive and they're not able to be productive. So that always goes back for me, like, as long as people have the choice as to what they want to do, I don't care. Like, you can choose to do whatever.
Yeah,
as
but
soon as-
don't you think that if you poll those women, right, majority of those women, and I'm not saying that women should like not be able to drive and have to wear headscarves and like can't. I'm not going that. I'm not insane. But don't you think that those women, if you look at them, they're not on SSRIs like half our population. They're not depressed. They're not suicidal. They're just not. They're not, and there's a reason that they're not.
Well, I don't
know
think
if
they
you
don't
know that. I mean, have like
Yeah.
I've
Well, look at
worked
the
with-
studies. There's
Well-
there's information that says that. I mean,
I can look at the studies, but they also don't know what it is to have freedom. So, that's the other thing too, where it's like, I was in Egypt, I was in these countries that, are heavily religious, and, it was crazy. Like, my wife was there. She, they tried to get her to wear the headscarf everywhere we went. They wouldn't talk to her. They'd only talk to me. She was the one paying for like coffee or whatever we're having. They were giving me the check or the credit card back. Like, they didn't want anything to do with interacting with her. And it was crazy. Like, that just, to me, it's a respect thing. It's also like a freedom thing. So I don't know if those women are happy or not. I mean,
Also,
we're
I don't know if
seeing-
the SSRIs are even like available over there. I think that might even
Right.
be, like
I mean,
incompatible. I don't even know.
depression,
I don't know. And isn't there like a whole like Iranian? Isn't there like haven't there been like big protests going on?
Yeah,
recently?
the
In Iran,
free
right?
the
Yeah.
free the yep, mhm,
Yeah.
free the
they've gone through lots of shifts and culture. And I'm not saying like let's go be that. Like that's I'm not going.
No, I
going
think
that
you're saying that there's a group of women there who are very happy, which is true.
Right. There is,
but-
and so there has to be some like meet in the middle where you're not having the destruction of society either.
Yeah. I'm with you. I just
we should
Fuentes
just
argument.
socially, and this is why I said we have a social problem, not a legislative problem. We should socially encourage the traditional family and social norms and things like that.
Isn't that happening? Would you agree that, on a voluntary basis, that is starting to become more understood and that there's sort of this resurgence?
I mean, in certain groups, yes. In other ones, no. Like I live in Philadelphia, so none of my people live here. Like there are no, I almost live, except for like these like 4 blocks around me right here. Like there are almost no conservatives at all. And I'm not talking about like any, like when I say my people, I'm not like talking about white people or anything like that. I'm talking about like there are no conservatives here. Most of the girls I know here that I talk to and hang out with, they think I'm absolutely insane. And they, want, free birth control, tons of abortions, and like to be working and to be like boss babe or whatever. Material things like handbags and like a fancy life. So I see that growing in certain factions. And then here, like in, if I go to Texas or I hang out with my like conservative political friends, I see a resurgence there, but absolutely not when it comes to like the colleges. And I don't know if you know this, but I write for Libs of TikTok. So I do their Substack. And when we get leads all the time. And what is in all of these schools, I would think that it was like an isolated incident here or there, or more
You're there,
towards
Patreon.
the blue cities. It's everywhere. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And these young kids in 14, 15, 16, 17, you know, even up into their early 20s are very much like opposed to all that.
Yeah, that's
So I'm
interesting.
just I want to clarify your position a little bit because I don't fully understand. So are you advocating more of like a voluntary move back towards those traditional sort of norms, or are you saying that you would favor like almost a change of legislation?
So I definitely mean like social norms. Oh no. Like I think
Mhm.
that like TikTok and Instagram and girls being, you know, music with their music videos of people with their, you know, asses out and things like that. Like we should totally reject that. Men should reject that from women. They should stop like, you know,
Simping.
liking all these girls' pictures. Yeah, simping and giving like all those type of women attention and things like that. And I think that women should, you know, hold back and be less promiscuous. I think that there needs to be a drive towards that socially. I always make jokes like, okay, if women didn't have the right to vote, then we wouldn't be in this mess. Like that's a joke of mine. But like I wouldn't actually advocate for taking it away. You know, like
Mhm.
I still vote. I'm an elected committee woman. So like,
Right.
you know, I think that there needs to be
I think
I
part of the problem too that's like different nowadays compared to, you know, 50s is that social media and like being a creator, a content creator, you know, like what you do and like what, you know, so many other like insanely talented women do on online these days. It's like that didn't exist. And that's the type of thing that you can do from home. And so like, yeah, I know that there were obviously amazingly talented artists, you know, back then. And so I don't think that we're in the same world, but I think
but
that
you know,
so
you do have to pick. Like as a mom, so
I don't think
I was yeah,
yeah.
you do have to pick. I
Okay.
went to school and then I went to the Hill and I worked as a comms director and stuff. And I worked on the Hill for years. I did policy, I did legislation, I worked for a think tank. And I finally got a work from home job in this June, right? But I have 2 little kids and I have them full time. And it is either I have to pick the day that I'm a good mother or a good employee. And that's a fact. And that is
Mm.
every day. And that is every day that I struggle. It gets to the point where they fall asleep. I fall asleep for a little bit. And then I have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to start writing or to start my day or to do the laundry or whatever. And then I go until 11 o'clock at night until I take another 3-hour nap. And you have to pick. You have to pick.
Yeah.
And my house, if I were to like zoom around here, you'd be like, oh my God, you cannot do both and be successful. You just can't. I mean,
Well, I think that's
I'm sure people make it work,
I mean,
but they get things like nannies and house cleaners, and you know, it's unrealistic to think that you can be super fantastic at both unless you're like a miracle person. That's not the average person, and it's not even like some of the hardest working, smartest people struggle with it.
mhm. Yeah, and the fact that you are doing both and kind of approaching it from this, like, I mean, you're living it and you're kind of owning the fact that you're not giving your kids what you want to be giving them. Um,
Mhm.
so I think, yeah, I think that's valid. I mean, you're literally in the midst of it right now. So it's hard to deny that. Cool. Well, let's scroll down what Libs of TikTok has been posting. What's something that you think's really important?
What's the last one? What did I write that we just put out last night? Was that
Oh,
there?
before we get into that, I'm curious. Oh, I
Mhm.
would love to have you on with the Con Cell Phones, Hayden, who's on Minds. Have you ever heard of like Right Wing Cope or Con Cell Phones?
No,
They're these very
maybe.
interesting. They're basically like, I would say like the left wing equivalent of Libs of TikTok on Twitter. You should follow
Got it.
them. Like, so
I probably should.
follow Right Wing Cope. It's
I
it
might even
just
follow them. Let me look.
um
Um,
I would love to have both of you together at some point because yeah, it would just be interesting. So anyway, I wanted to bring that up, but we can do that another time. It might be better to just look at the Twitter, Sean, so we don't have to click through.
Oh, gotcha.
yeah. So I'm not the one. There's one woman that runs it, and she posts all that. Like it's all her Twitter. So she needed help. There were people who were getting so many leads in. And so they were like, hey, can you help go through some of these leads and pick out some of the stories? And we've had some wild ones. The one down there that you just almost had, it had like the pride flag with 2 schools on there. I don't know where it went.
Oh, I think I get it. That's one.
Yeah, that's one. That's one of the ones we just did. This one is just like, it's this kind of stuff all the time. So 6th grade class has, they say they're going to bring in a public school library, a youth librarian in from the public library to go over selected book readings for the 6th graders and their theme for that quarter. So like last one, it was like survivors or something. And this one was coming of age. And so they take these 6th graders, and now remember the age of 6th graders, they're 11 years old. And they say, and she comes in and she's talking about this Anna on the Edge book, which is not as bad as some of the other ones. It's not graphic. It's not pornographic. It's not any of that. It's a girl who's struggling with feeling feminine. She's an ice skater. She meets a trans boy, whatever. But they're talking to this 6th grade class, and this woman, or this girl who's a librarian, gets up and says, do any of you not feel like a girl? Do any of you not feel like a boy? Do you have a safe space at home where you can feel like that? And I'm telling you, from having an 8-year-old and whatever, and people are saying like that kids, as young as 5 or whatever can they know their gender or whatever. My son is at 6 years old is concerned with tying his shoes. Learning to tie his shoes. He has no idea what sex or gender means. He thinks he can marry his sister because, they don't have any idea what's going on. Right. He'll be like, Mommy, can you marry me when I get older? Like they don't know. And
they're not jacked into the matrix yet. Right. They're like barely conscious. Right.
And so we're confusing these kids and not only that though, you're taking away the parents' rights to have this conversation with their kids first. They didn't tell the parents. It wasn't until some of the kids came home and said, Mom, they were talking about this at school. What is this? I have no idea. If you go to this thing, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but go to Google Ask Amaze, right? If you go to Ask Amaze, it's like a YouTube channel. This is set up for how old? 9th grade and up, right? Here, I'll send it to you, Sean.
Is it Mace, MACE?
AZE, like Amaze.
Oh, Maze.
Ask Amaze, right? No, it's all one. You're doing it wrong.
Oh.
Ask Amaze.
Sure.
Amazing, right? Yeah. Okay, look at these. This is set up and this is what they're doing in New Jersey, sex ed curriculum for 9-year-olds. It says, is it normal to watch porn? What would be used for a chest binder? Why would a person want to use a chest binder? All kinds of sexual graphic things done in cartoon form to appeal to 9-year-olds. And this is like a global organization. New Jersey, their teachers have recommended this to schools in a Dropbox link that I have, showing, trying to teach kids about porn at 9 years old. I mean, what world do we live in?
So what age, I agree with you. I've kids as well. And it is sort of like this inevitable tsunami coming that, that at some point they're going to get approached about this, whether it's in school or it's their friends who's are seeing it on TikTok. My daughter has friends. It's her friends in school who have TikTok are the ones who are corrupting her. It's it's so obvious. She comes home and tells us stories, and all the girls are flocking around the girls with TikTok. Like the younger the girl in the class at the youngest age with TikTok is like the cool girl.
Wow. Well, see, that's why I didn't put my kids in that kind of school. So I put my kids, and I will eat ramen every day of my life to keep my kids in this Christian classical school. But my kids coming home, and in her school, they call it quill and feather. We all had to sign agreements. Our kids wouldn't get phones until 8th grade. My son is in kindergarten reading Orpheus and doing plays on that. They have to play violin, and she's in 3rd grade in chemistry, and they're doing, she's coming home singing Latin songs, and it's cool to be the cool kid. And if you talk about TikTok in that school, you're the embarrassment. And that's where the change needs to happen, right? It needs to be a societal change where that is not cool. That isn't, you need to be. And I
will say Catholic, there's a meme. I mean, it's Catholic.
Well, my kids aren't in the Catholic school.
they are, or they
They're
are
not in a Catholic school. No,
Oh,
I
it's
am
not a
Catholic.
Catholic school.
I did not put them in a Catholic school because I think
I
they're
see.
just as corrupt.
But
Yeah,
I will. But even still, the corruption is still going to leak in. So I get the question that I was going to ask is, at what age, because this force is so strong, would you preempt and tell your kids about
14,
this stuff?
15, freshman year in high school.
That's so late that it's going to hit them before that.
I will tell you right now, I know these kids in this little school, it isn't hitting them. And I've noticed a difference in my daughter when I take her to summer camp in the summer. She hangs out with different kids. She comes home. My son's doing this weird gritty dance. I'm like, what is happening? And then they go back to school and it's like a reset.
Yeah.
Peer influence is everything.
Mhm.
I totally agree with you, but I really know that I will do everything I can not to expose my kids to that while they're going through all those hormonal changes and things like that. And it's a parent's responsibility to do that. Now, if you're a mom and you're not home and you're working all the time, it's easier to give your kid a phone instead of staying and playing with them or baking with them or making pumpkin muffins. You know what I mean? Like it's easier to say, here, just take a phone. I need a break. I need to do this. My boss is calling. It's easier to have more control over your kids if there is, and it can be a man too, whatever. But if there's a parent in the home full time to get them off the bus, to get them in the house, to read with them, to do activities with them, and keep them off technology and off TikTok and off the phones.
Yeah, I think there's a huge difference between education and promotion. And like in school, we had health class. It was educational. It was like, hey, this is what this does, your organ, whatever. This is where babies come from. It's educational. Never once did the teacher promote it or say, wouldn't it be great if you were non-binary or trans or whatever? And, and I think that's kind of some of the issue we're seeing, especially from the TikTok generation and TikTok itself. It's the glorification of some of this stuff. It really reminds me of like when I was in school, MC Hammer was big. So everybody wore baggy pants, that's like the cool
The
thing
hammer
to do.
pants.
Yeah,
the hammer pants. Yeah. And it's like, this is like now the new cool thing to be non-binary or whatever the case is. And, there's a huge difference between education and promotion. And I think kids are getting too much of the latter,
You can't walk into Target downtown in South Philadelphia and without pride everything. As a matter of fact, my daughter can read. She's 8. She goes, Mom, it says, be queer. No, be proud, be queer. What does that mean? Like it's saying be queer. And now I have to explain to an 8-year-old what queer means. Why? She's 8.
Well, but you're right. But you do. So, but did you?
I don't.
You
No.
don't. See, I don't know. I don't know if that's so do you have a son and daughter?
Yeah, I have a son and a daughter.
Got it. I mean, and it's different now, I think, because I remember growing up being 9 and, the internet was new. And obviously me and my friends were, searching the internet to find the craziest shit we possibly could.
AOL. Yeah.
Just because it was all a new thing. And I think that maybe back then, because it was all new, they didn't even know about what we were finding. Like literally as 9-year-olds, we knew more about what was there than my parents probably.
Absolutely.
So I think that is a big difference now. And I think why parents have an extra responsibility now, because it's not like a 3-frame, scandalous video that you're finding at 9. It's like insane, full, high res, whatever you could imagine. And it's and obviously, the porn addictions is like it's basically a pandemic of itself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I think the parents need to be very watchful. I mean, and it's not even just of kids. Like it's an epidemic among adults.
It destroys your gray matter in your brain and it totally rewires your brain. It's like, it's so bad for you.
Yeah. It's like, again, it's become this really cool thing too, which is like, that's the cultural promotion. If the kids all, if everyone's flocking to the TikTok kids bill for a reason, because they think, oh, they have this thing that we all want to be a part of. And yeah, I think it's hard for parents. I don't envy them. Like you're going to have to explain this is why they think the way they do. This is why they think.
I have to deal with it all the time. We walk down the boardwalk and my daughter's like, Mom, is she dressed modestly? I don't think she's dressed modestly. And I'm like, no, she's not. Right. And I'm not saying that I am like, listen, I lived wild. Don't get me wrong. You know, I have definitely made my mistakes and had some come to Jesus moments in my life. But I would like to prevent that. And I think that the reason that I like dug my way out of the holes that I did was because my parents gave me a really good foundation in right and wrong and God. And there was somebody always at home with me and didn't let me get away with things and was strict and didn't introduce us to these things. Like me and my mother, I never had a sex talk with my parents. I never had a, how do you